Now, for more on what's trending in the global music industry, let's bring in Casey Rae, author of the book William S. Burroughs and the Cult of Rock and Roll, and adjunct professor of communication, culture, and technology at Georgetown University. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So let's start with a look at some of the biggest highlights and challenges for the global music industry in 2016. What did you see?
Well, right now there's a tremendous opportunity to get more people around the world onto streaming music services, because the convenience, the interoperability, the fact that everybody's basically got a internet-based computer in their telephone or tablet means that the opportunity for the music industry is global. The difficulty is that that tends to work for folks who are operating at a global scale, and it is harder to make a living from a recorded music revenue stream on the margins and in the middle, actually, which is an interesting and new dynamic.
And speaking of that, we know that some artists are reluctant to have their content on streaming services. And of course, as you mentioned, some of the compensation, especially when it comes to artists, can really vary. So how would you characterize the current state of streaming services?
You know, I think it makes a lot of sense for the consumer. There's a tremendous amount of value. If you're doing a paid subscription service and you're paying, say, $10 US, which is similar to the rest of the markets where these services exist, you know, you have access to pretty much the entirety of recorded music and most everything new that comes out. And I think that over time the industry will be so acclimated to that mode, and the consumer expectation will be around instantaneous access, that it will be very difficult to, you know, stuff streaming in the closet or whatever. But I do think it is important to have alternatives in the marketplace for musicians, independent labels that are operating at a more modest scale. Because remember, you know, you can still have quite a big fan base and not be Beyonce or not be Taylor Swift. And it's those folks, I think, who are not particularly well served by today's digital landscape. Although it's good that things are trending towards legitimacy and legality.
And as our reporter was showing, we obviously have a lot of Chinese artists who are very popular domestically and even regionally. But in terms of actually really cracking that global recognition, what are some of the barriers there?
You know, I think a language barrier certainly was one originally and initially. It may still be the case. I think also there's a perception increasingly in America where, you know, the largest portion of the record buying country is essentially, or even the streaming listening country or the radio listening country, is essentially being, you know, funneled towards American artists by the record industries and the media industries in the United States. And that's probably why country music is really, really popular. It appeals to a certain breed of Americana and patriotism that, you know, at its worst seems like nativism, but I'll leave that alone. With the international music scene, I think there's a possibility that Chinese artists will break big in this decade. We've seen the global dominance in the pop category on the songwriting and production side belong to Sweden, and the rest of Scandinavia actually is playing a pretty interesting role in multiple genres in the business. So I think it is a global market, and I think that China's ascendancy within it is dependent on two things: building out the base of legitimate users in their own country,
right?
So there can be a sort of reciprocal exchange based on a common understanding of intellectual property law, and then, you know, just figuring out the right vehicle for a Chinese artist to enter the U.S. market. And it doesn't just have to be a record album. It can be a television show. It can be a cartoon. It could be a hologram. Who knows?
Now, speaking of the future, we know that Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos predicts that a lot of growth in the music industry is going to come from some of these connected devices like Echo. How do you see that and perhaps other future tech trends really playing into the music industry?
I think the connected home and the Internet of Things just extends the operating theater of the digital music services and the multimedia services that we already see today. I expected virtual reality to move a little bit faster than it has. I always saw potential in the idea of having a concert in your living room. Maybe it's an intimate house concert where the artist is in their living room too, or maybe it's more of a, you know, spectacle arena experience where you have this dimensionality that you wouldn't get even from a pay-per-view concert experience. I was also thinking that as we move into the Internet of Things, the connected speaker and voice control will become a major experience in certain listening environments.
Right.
That looks like it's Amazon probably leading the race there. I have had Sonos speakers in my home for about, 10 plus years. I used to call it my Jetsons home,
Right.
back then.
Who would have thought?
But now, controlling your music experience in multiple rooms or your entertainment experience in multiple rooms from a single point device or app is kind of the norm.
Well, we'll see. Yes, it's the norm now. Who knows what will happen 5, 10 years from now? Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us.